Hello, Saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com as well as the mobile app. He's Howard Cross. I'm Lance Medow with you for the next 60 minutes, and it is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Multiple ways you can interact with us here on the program. You give us a ring, 201-939-4513. You can also hit us up on Twitter, hashtag GiantsChat. And as a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at Giants.com/podcast. So free agency is up and running, and a lot of transactions across the board. But let me preface, I should say, all of our commentary that is going to follow, and that is that nothing is official. Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, is when players can put their John Hancock on contracts. Until then, physicals can happen, changes can happen. So everything we're talking about is not official at all in terms of the Giants' perspective. But we're going to go over all the moves.
They can't spend the money yet, you mean? You can't, don't buy nothing?
Nothing is officially adding up in the salary cap until we get to Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's more of a bookkeeping issue, I guess, is what we're getting at. Well, we knew a big theme this offseason, Howard, was going to be the trenches, whether it be the offensive line or the defensive line. And according to reports, the Giants have addressed both of those areas. Let's start with what I would say is by far the biggest splash, and that is pulling off a trade with the Carolina Panthers. And once again, according to reports, it's a second and a fifth, nothing official, in which Brian Burns will come over. Now, Burns was a candidate for the franchise tag.
Yeah.
Panthers ultimately decided to go in a different direction, but they now are shipping him to the Giants. And here's a guy who's had at least 7.5 sacks in each of his seasons in the NFL. His quarterback hits have also been extremely consistent. And he's another disruptor. And with what happened with Azeez Ojulari thus far in terms of not being able to stay healthy, you now have more than a compliment for Kayvon Thibodeau, who's coming off an impressive double-digit sack campaign.
Well, I think, one of the things is that you have to think about this. Is like the Giants haven't been playing with a lead, so it's kind of hard to have your errors pinned back and getting after guys. So Thibodeau, if the offense picks up and they start being a little more consistent, then the defense and Thibodeau and those guys will be able to get more sacks. The fact of the matter is that when you're playing from behind a lot, the other teams usually run the ball late in the game, and the sack chances go down. But with a player like this coming in, you'll have more chances in that first and second down when they start to throw the ball. That will be hopefully make things more productive in the pass rush, and they'll get more hits on the quarterback. And the thing that you said, the hits on the quarterback are important. The more times you get to him, the more times you knock him on the ground, the more times he's thinking about it.
I mean, he's had 95 quarterback hits over the course of his 5 seasons in the NFL. 2019 was his first year, and you look at his numbers, anywhere between 16 to 22 in any given season, and the sacks, I mentioned, at least 7.5 in each. 12.5 was his best year in 2022. And here's the other thing. The durability factor, Howard. Okay? We're talking about an individual that is suited up for at least 15 games in each of his 5 seasons with Carolina. Now, remember, when the Giants went out and signed Olivier Vernon, he was the poster child of this. So, all of this has conditions, but it's good to know that a guy, year in and year out, has been able to hold his own and stay on the field. That's at least encouraging.
Well, thinking about Ojulari, I have to tell people this, that, when they drafted him, they knew he was going to be on the pitch count.
Sure.
So even
he had baggage.
Injuries. Yeah, he had baggage. He had the knee. He had to get knee the whole time. So when he's healthy, he's so good. But when he's the problem is he's not going to be healthy that often. So bringing this kid in is going to be your greatest ability for everybody. It's availability, and when you're available, game in and game out, good things happen. Continuity happens. It just picks up the pace of play. A young guy, too. He's only 25 years old.
Correct. That's key.
That is a big thing also. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm excited about, the defense now having a chance to get after the passer consistently from both sides of the line. So we'll see.
Well, I think you hit it right on the nose. You want to bring in guys that are coming off of rookie contracts because there's still that peak that they could potentially reach.
Absolutely.
The window is wide open. So I think that's what makes also a guy like Brian Burns extremely attractive. So
that's going to make Dexter happy also to have another guy out there that's going to
listen, the more playmakers you get on the field, the merrier, because it helps everybody. Now it gives teams a reason to shift their attention across the line.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that necessarily going up against the Giants this past season, they posed that threat or that challenge to the opposition consistently.
Well, the threat was there were so many blitzes. So that's what the threat was.
No, that's true, meaning they had to account for everybody coming. But I guess what I'm saying is if you pinpointed the personnel and you said, okay, who can't damage the game, were you looking at 5 or 6 guys?
Exactly. I got you.
And I think that's where the Giants want to get to with Shane Bowen, of course, taking over the defensive scheme. Then we flipped the script. They brought in 2 free agent offensive linemen. They brought in John Runyon Jr., whose father was known, as you well know, for playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, had a heated rivalry with Michael Strahan. Runyon has played both guard spots. And here's another guy that has a lot of starting experience, coming off of a rookie contract, and also has been durable. That's the key. Again, when you're talking about can you rely on this player, he's played in every game since 2020 because we didn't make the transition to 17 games in his rookie year. So he was in all 16 games. He wasn't a starter that year. Last 3 seasons as starter, he's appeared in all 17 games. And the good news is he's got versatility. So you can move him on the left side or the right side in terms of how they determine the allotment of personnel based on the other moves they make over the course of this offseason.
Like that guy a lot. I like the idea that you could bring in a guy that's probably going to be a starter, not just bringing in somebody that, we hope that he fits in somewhere. We bring in a guy that could start at either side, which is also great. So that's going to be he's a definite plus and a big upgrade at the guard position.
Now, the other offensive lineman is Jermaine Illuminor. He has ties to Carmen Brasillo, who just came in as the new offensive line coach. They spent the last 2 seasons together in Las Vegas. And Illuminor was the mainstay at right tackle. 17 games he started 2 years ago, 14 this year. Then they go back, actually, Howard, to their days together with New England. Illuminor was there in 19 and 20. In 2020, they assigned him the starting right tackle job right out of the gates. Problem was, week 6, he suffers an ankle injury, and in and out of the lineup. So they went in a different direction. And Brasillo was the co-offensive line coach in 2020. He was a coaching assistant in 2019. But the point is, he's followed his development. And you can argue, how did Illuminor go from a practice squad guy to a journeyman who's been on a few teams because he started his career with Baltimore to now a reliable starting right tackle? Brasillo has his hands in all of that. And now that will continue here with the Giants.
And how old is he?
He is 29 years old.
Okay. All right. It's still young enough. We're going to see. It's going to be interesting to see how good he's going to be, how well he can pick up the scheme. And I'm sure he already knows because if they've been together that long, they're very familiar with each other. So that's going to be super helpful for him, which means that, hey, look, Evan Neal, they're bringing guys in. Get yourself ready.
Which I'm sure Evan Neal anticipated.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. He knows based on what happened last season. Yeah. And we don't know where all of these guys are going to line up. I think that's important. I know there's a lot of speculation, but you figure Neal will compete, to your point, with Illuminor at right tackle. We know about Andrew Thomas. Runyon, you could go left or right, depending on where they go elsewhere in free agency or the draft. And we know John Michael Schmitz is obviously at center. But here's the thing, Howard. The 2 guys who started at guard at the end of the season were scheduled free agents. I mean, they had to do something at this position, and they clearly didn't waste any time. And, oh, by the way, Illuminor has some experience at guard as well, going back to the early stages of his career.
And also, when you talk about guys being free agents at the end of the year, and you got to figure out if you're going to pay them or not, they didn't play. We all can agree that the offensive line struggled mightily last year, so you're not going to be paying guys, the extra ticket just so they can stay around to have more of the same. You want to try to improve. You don't pay for the same.
100%. So they were very active in terms of the first day of free agency, in terms of tackle and guard. And then the other piece, and pass rusher. And then the other piece staying on the offensive side of the ball is running back with Devin Singletary, according to reports, joining Brian Dable again and Joe Shane, because both of them were all together, the three of them, I should say, in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Shane was involved in the front office when they drafted Singletary in 2019. Dable orchestrated the offense. And the thing about Singletary is he's been part of a tandem, Howard, throughout his career.
Okay.
So, they're not bringing him in and he's going to get 300 some odd carries. But with the young guys they already have on the roster, you can formulate a running back by committee like we see, right, a bullpen by committee in baseball. And Singletary, if you look at his numbers, he's gotten in the 150s to 200 volume of carries. Remember, he also played in an offense where Josh Allen was a prevalent part of the run game. But he was with guys like Frank Gore, Zach Moss, James Cook, when he was in Houston last season, Damian Pierce. So here's a veteran complementary piece who has not been overworked throughout his career because he wasn't necessarily a workhorse.
I think it's more than a player. I think they're structurally trying to build more successfully closer to like a Buffalo kind of offensive look at things. I think running back by committee is what Buffalo's been using for a while. They haven't been paying running backs some big, huge amount of money, and guys have kind of come in, kind of come out. They've been very successful. Again, you do also have Josh Allen as part of the run game, so it's been a successful piece, and you're able to build more around other positions like offensive line, of course, and some of the defensive line. So I think you can kind of see the strategy they're kind of using, kind of employing, not to overpay in one spot so they can try to get better all around. So I appreciate some of the things they're doing.
Between 151 carries and 216 carries is what he's been working with throughout the course of his career. Also, somebody that's chipped in as a receiver.
Yeah.
Maybe not a high-volume guy, but you can utilize him on third downs based on his skill set. And he's somebody that, once again, will add a little bit more versatility to what now is going to become a relatively young backfield.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a young backfield, hopefully a better offensive line. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities for these guys. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of put those guys together. Who's going to step into the forefront? I'm suspecting they're thinking he wants to be the leader of the pack.
Sure.
And he will be familiar with some of Dayball's schemes and what he's been doing. And it's going to be interesting to see how Kafka can put these guys to use. It's going to be fun.
You got Eric Gray and Gary Brightwell still on the roster.
Yep.
Gray, 5th-round pick last year. Brightwell, the 6th-round pick. And I thought Brightwell showed some flashes.
He
when
did
he
have
some opportunities, right?
Yeah, he's a strong back. He was able to put his head down, run between the tackles. When he gets outside, he got a little bit of a shake about him. So he's going to be excited to play. And again, running back by committee, a lot of these guys are going to be hopefully healthy the entire season, keeping guys up, keeping them ready to go, and be excited about playing. I mean, this is a great opportunity for all of them to try to better themselves, and most of them are very young guys.
So the need for Singletary was created. Should we get to the elephant in the room?
There's an elephant.
What happened?
That's why I didn't wear the Alabama hat. I wore the Notre Dame hat, so you wouldn't say the elephant in the room.
Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. I didn't go over the memo. I know. I kid. So the Giants, according to reports, have lost 2 prominent players who they drafted, and first, of course, is Saquon Barkley, who signed the deal reportedly with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I can only imagine what Giants fans are thinking from that standpoint. But before we get into what that decision means, I think what we've been talking on this program for plenty of time is that Saquon wanted to hit the market, Howard. Clearly every player wants to hit the market, but he in particular, because he was given the franchise tag last season, and all it takes is one team, right? That's all it takes. One team that could give you a significant offer which doesn't compare to any other team across the board. And he found that in the Philadelphia Eagles, at least from a financial standpoint.
Listen, every player deserves to make as much money as he possibly can.
I agree with
you. And you try to get every dollar you can. And there's something to be said. Like, I played forever with the Giants. If the worlds would have been different, I probably wouldn't have played the entire time with the Giants. I probably would have gone to another team and took a ton of money to go play tight end somewhere else. But that's just it. Free agency was just starting back then.
Sure.
But these guys have an opportunity, especially you get a little security. With the signing bonus, you'll get locked in for a couple of years, and it's very helpful. Saquon wanted to be a Giant. That was very evident. He did everything he could last year to try to get a deal done. They just couldn't find a way to do it. And I say it again. The way they've run the organization before, the way, not the Giants themselves, but the way Shane and these guys have done it, the way they did it successfully in Buffalo is that you didn't overpay at the running back position. And that's what they were looking at. And for the fans and everything, I understand you want your players to stay. You've got his jersey and all this stuff, but we weren't running back away from solving what was going on offensively.
Well, and listen, as good as Saquon was when he was healthy, you're right. It wasn't necessarily translating to wins. So, you bring up
that had nothing to do with him. But
I'm not putting it on him. I'm just saying that in particular, if you at least look at his offensive production. But what you were indicating, Howard, is at least based on what we've seen, there is a movement towards investing up front as opposed to investing in. Think about it. You had potentially money that you could have locked up at a running back position and the safety position because Xavier McKinney got a lucrative deal from the Packers. Instead, you're taking those investments and you're saying we're going to get stronger at the pass rushing position because we know we need to get after the quarterback, especially if Shane Bowen's not going to blitz as much, of course, as Wink Martindale, potentially, just at least based on the scheme. I'm only going by track record, Howard. I'm not saying that he's not going to blitz. I'm just saying he doesn't have the same track record, at least, as Wink Martindale.
Got it.
And then offensive line play, clearly, they need upgrades, and not just in one position. So they're saying if we improve there, what could that mean for the pieces elsewhere around them?
Well, historically, unfortunately, the Giants have had the worst offensive line play last year that I think they've had in the last, I think they said 10 to 15 years. So that right there was like a definite, hey, we got to do something immediately or we're going to get somebody hurt, as they did last year a few times, different guys. So they really went out and they did start to address this moment. We're bringing a couple guys in. They're probably going to address it even more in the draft. And they said, okay, so we're going to not spend everything all at once on these two positions. So we're going to finish all around the field before we spend that much money on two positions. Again, McKinney, great player, probably going to be a Pro Bowler for the next 4 or 5 years. And I hate to see him go, but you're going to be able to get a couple other safeties in the game, some guys that are going to be doing good. And if you got more pressure on the quarterback, there'll be more mistakes made, and the ball will be floating a little earlier. So I think you invest up front first, and you put everything else in place as you go.
Plus, if you look at the safety position, Jason Pinnock coming off a solid campaign.
Yes, great year.
Dane Belton has not received as much opportunity, but when he got in late last season,
he had a nose for the ball.
Correct. He looked really good.
Absolutely.
So now Belton could have an opportunity, and then Javarius Owens, who they drafted in the 7th round last year, mainly a special teamer, but he may now have an opportunity, and there's room to add, to your point, a veteran. You bring him in maybe on a 1-year deal, and he adds more experience to what is, for the most part, a young cluster of guys.
And then there are a lot of guys in the draft also.
Sure, absolutely.
We haven't even gotten close to the draft yet. And there, after watching these guys work out and train and going back and watch some tape of these guys and a bunch of different players in college, I guess I'll be expanding into the safety too. But there are a lot of players out there that at that position that are going to be coming out. They're going to be, 3rd-round picks, 2nd-round picks. You're going to be like, I can't believe he's still there. And they'll have an opportunity to pick up somebody that can, be a difference maker in the secondary.
And also keep in mind, a guy like Nick McLeod, he also has experience at safety and corner and is a really good special teamer too. So he's a restricted free agent, but I would say the chances are that he could very well return based on how free agency plays out. So there's options, at least internally, on the roster. Now, that's a little bit different in terms of Buffalo's approach, interestingly, Howard, because you were talking about the running back. They had Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer for years. Now they're moving on, though, from those two guys. So, everything's not identical.
But they were young.
Correct. They were young when they had those guys then invested in them.
Yeah, they were. What I mean by young, they were like coming off their rookie contracts.
Yeah, sure.
So they were like, that was they hadn't really hit the, wow, they're going to make a big deal, big hit. So that's why they were there for so long.
And McKinney, like anything else, had every right to test the market because he wasn't tagged, and he was able to take advantage. But I was talking about this on other shows, Howard. There were a lot of safeties who you just hit on that hit the market, right? Guys were being released left and right, including Jordan Poyer. But what set McKinney aside from all of those guys? 24 years old.
Yes.
Whereas all the other players, right, were up there in age. And I said, teams are going to look at McKinney very differently than they're going to look at a guy who's 31 or 32 years old hitting free agency. It's night and day. I mean,
you also got to look at it. McKinney played every play of the defense last year. Did not miss a play. So the year before, he hurt his hand in some freak accident when he was on vacation. But this year, he comes back. He plays every game. He makes plays all over the field. He's dependable. He's got a nose for the ball. He has great range, and he's 24. So, when he goes out in the market, it's a big difference, and people are looking at it going like, hey, look, we can use this guy. So his contract he'll be able to play to the end of his contract, and probably he'll still not be 30 years old.
Well, and that puts him in position, right, to cash in again, on maybe a smaller deal. But a team like Green Bay feels good about giving him the contract because, to your point, we're talking about he's 28 years old by the time it expires.
Exactly.
So not a bad situation for them to lock themselves up in. And that's why I always thought McKinney would be treated differently than the other safeties on the market. Few reminders before we open up the phone lines here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Giants Huddle Podcast. You can check it out on your favorite podcast platform. You go to giants.com/podcast. Now, as we look forward to the 2024 campaign, you take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships now available for the 2024 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, it brings you original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV, it's free. It's on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. All right, let's open up the phone lines as we move forward here on BBKL, and we check in with Dan in the Poconos with us here. What's happening, Dan? What do you got?
Hey, good afternoon, fellas.
Hey, how you doing?
Well, I'm not doing too good.
Okay.
Well, what do you got for us?
I have been since yesterday. Well, I want to touch on that running back in a minute. If you give me just 2 seconds, I'm usually really fast on the phone. 1 point. I called up last week, and I said how it was a no-brainer to pick Alt at number 6. And, obviously, I don't even have to say, because we've had struggling forever with the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
But then Jonathan and I think it might have been you, Lance, but you guys were saying how nothing is a no-brainer. And I guess that's true because the only problem I see as far as it not being a no-brainer, if one of those quarterbacks is still at available.
And also, sorry for interrupting, but he also is a left tackle.
That's what I brought up.
Yeah, he's not a right tackle.
Yeah, that's why I said it was a no-brainer, just for context, Dan, because Howard wasn't with me. I said that you can't just assume moving a guy who's solely a left tackle to right tackle is 100% going to work out.
Yeah.
That's what I had pointed out as to why it's a no-brainer.
Okay, and you guys did point out that just because I heard a few guys say, "Oh, we'll move him to the right and he'll be fine," that doesn't necessarily mean that.
Oh, it's a bit of the land of the unknown. I mean, he's a heck of a talent, but I mean, as Howard can attest to, I mean, he played tight end. Footwork changes completely.
Well, it's not only footwork, and the sad thing is for players that are coming in and coming up to date, they don't have the ability to actually practice it. Like they don't get full speed practices and pads and have to be forced into it. So, something that you're naturally doing the entire time through college, and it's like, okay, switch, do it to the other side. It might take you time to figure it out because you only have like so many padded practices you're going to get in, and you can't continue to do it during the season because I think you only have 7 padded practices.
You have limitations.
Yeah,
obviously.
So you have to get some training somewhere, and it's not easy to do.
Because, the reason I even say that is because I'd love to have, neighbors or one of these, but, I just don't want to see Daniel running for his life. Next thing you know, he's laying on a stretcher, and we're in the same boat as always, So that's why I was just saying I just want to do the O-line, But just my other point, I do not buy into. I am in the real world here. I'm a blue-collar guy. I've been doing it for 25 years, busting my ass, and I'm lucky if I make $75K a year, okay? Now, I don't want to hear, and all these fans, this is why I was a Giants season ticket holder for over 20 years, my wife and I. Haven't been for the last 4 years. No, this is why I stopped, because Saquon was our best player. We can't even, you could put the ball on the 1-yard line. We can't score a touchdown. We can't score points. So we let Saquon walk. And I don't buy into the fact that, the player was going to get $12 million where the Giants were only going to give him $10 million. So I understand that. I understand why he went. I'll never see $10 million in my life. Do I give a damn? My wife and I, we're going to put it on Facebook too. We're burning those 26 jerseys. We're burning them and putting them on. I wish nothing. I'm pissed at the Giants. I'm pissed at Barkley. I'm just pissed at the Giants. Because you see the Eagles. Look at the Packers. Packers, man, they're going to be good next year. Look at the Niners. Look at the Eagles. And what do we got? We got Daniel Jones. oh, man, watch out. Those Giants are coming to town with Daniel Jones. You better.
Well, I mean, listen, Daniel,
Dan,
the Houston Texans, I don't think many people expected them to have the season they did last year. I mean, you never know in the NFL. I understand, and listen, we appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. And every fan is entitled to feel like Dan feels, but also at the same time, the player has every right to test free agency and accept the deal that he wants. I mean, you could look at it both ways.
Listen, here's what for fans and any fan that calls in and says this, I would love to hear this. If you're working at a job, whatever your job is, and he was just said eloquently, he's making $75,000 a year. If he could get the same job making $125,000 a year, would he take it?
Without a doubt, without any hesitation. Correct.
So the thing is, and I understand fandom, but you should be if you're a fan of the player, just be a fan of the player. Players move and players come and players go. Be a fan of the jersey, not the person in the jersey.
Well, that's the nature of the NFL. Look at what also happened. According to reports, Aaron Jones, right, was let go by the Packers.
Yep.
Where's he going, Howard? He's going to the Vikings.
Yeah,
you think Packers fans love that?
Look,
it happens.
If they're paying you and you want to. This business is, it's as much fun as it is and as exciting as it is and as much money as you make, it's also very short. So you have to get in, get what you can, try to leave as healthy as possible, and move on with your life. It's tough, believe me.
Well, and unlike Xavier McKinney, Saquon is probably of the realization he's only going to get this one lucrative contract, Howard.
This is it.
This is it. That's what I'm saying.
For a running back, I'm happy that he got his money and everything. I'm sorry it was with the Eagles, but this is it. He is, 27, 26, well, whatever. He's been in the league 6 years.
But it's more of the mileage. It's not even so much the age.
No, it is.
The running back.
It's everything. Like he's been 26.
And he's 27,
Yeah, 27 years old.
He just turned it in February.
Yeah, he'll be playing this contract. If he's able to stay healthy and play through it till 30, there are not many 30-year-old running backs in the league, if any.
Well, if they are, they're on short-term deals and they're complimentary backs. You're not necessarily putting as much stock in those level of running backs.
I don't know. Maybe Tyreek Hill is he? I don't know, but I don't think there's very many running backs that are 30. That doesn't happen anymore. The days of Emmitt Smith.
Well, Adrian Peterson played till he was up there.
That's look at you to my age, AP, man. That's
I mean
he's a monster.
Of course, he's in a league of his own. But I'm saying there are still some guys that are up there in the age. Frank Gore. Look how long
Frank Gore played forever. Okay. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He played so long that you thought him and his son were going to be teammates.
Yes, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So there are a few guys, but I think your point is well taken in terms of the role and the level of a contract is not going to be anywhere near what you could get when you're 25 years old.
That's it. He's going to get all he can get now. That's going to be the big
move.
So
that's definitely part of the mindset.
Absolutely.
Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Lucas in New York. Lucas, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Hey, Howard, Lance, how you both doing?
Doing
right. Good.
What's on your mind?
So for me, Saquon leaving, it sucks. Gabe Davis got more per year than him. I think the Giants could have given him, $13 million. I don't think it would have broken the bank. His stats for the team are great. I don't think Devin Singletary is going to do as much. I don't think anyone expects that. I mentally cut him when he broke his hand into smithereens because it was such a bonehead, crazy, freaky incident, and it was at a bad time for us, that playoff season we had.
Mm-hmm.
But my primary question, and what I want to hear from you guys is, and forgive me if you've mentioned it already in the show, is do you think, of course, we signed this big D lineman, right, with the trade, via the trade, we lost that second-round pick. Mm-hmm. Two-part question. A, was the second-round pick that we traded away the one we got for Leonard? And B, do you think it's going to affect us? Well, obviously it will, but how do you think it's going to affect us in terms of maybe not the first round, because it's kind of like quarterback or best value, maybe wide receiver, O-line, fine. Mm-hmm. But in that later second round, the only pick we have, do you think it shifts to corner comfortably? Like, do you think it shifts a little bit of the paradigm of the situation?
Well,
and you're going to hear what you're going to say,
Yeah, so this is what I think. I think that, getting the kid in as a other pass rusher, a productive kid that gets a lot of hits on the quarterback, a big-time pass rusher, where a year ago the Rams were trying to give up 2 first-round picks for him, right? So you getting the value of a kid that a lot of teams in the league really, really have a high, high value on. The Giants were able to get him for the second and the fifth. So I think that they made out in that aspect alone. That means that you're not trying to draft another pass rusher or something. You're actually getting a young guy that can still bring it real heavy. So that's a good thing. So that doesn't really affect it that way. You still get your first round pick, whatever direction they decide to go. The second round, you weren't gonna get a guy like him in the second round. I don't care what position you were picking, unless it was just somebody that kind of slipped through the cracks.
100%.
And to answer your question, it's being reported, but once again, this is not official, so things can change. It's being reported that it's the number 39 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. That's the second rounder that's going to Carolina.
Is that our natural second round, or did we pick that up for Leo? Was that the Seahawks pick?
That is the natural second round pick. If you think about it, 32,
okay.
That's 6 rounds. That's 6 picks in after. So that would be our pick.
But once again, it's according to reports, and when they hammer out the deal officially, things could change. So I would take that right now with a grain of salt, because even though it's reported, doesn't mean that that's exactly how it's going to come to fruition. And 39, to confirm what Howard said, is the original Giants pick, because I'm bringing up the draft order, and that is their actual pick. Yeah.
I do good with numbers.
And the Seahawks have a slightly worse pick, so we almost got Leo for $10 million. The Burns character. We almost got him for what I'm seeing is a fifth-round pick and $10 million difference, because Leo's contract was $20 million, 20-something million, $21 million.
Well, and you also have to look at it from the standpoint, Lucas, and appreciate the phone call, that they're also two very different players, Howard. Brian Burns and Leonard Williams. I wouldn't necessarily compare them stylistically speaking. I mean, Leonard is a guy that's interchangeable inside, outside. Burns is a typical pass rusher off the edge, whether he's a linebacker or a guy that plays on the line. So a little bit different in terms of what you're getting in a guy like Burns.
What you were trying to do, what the Giants appear to be trying to do is trying to get more pressure on the quarterback. It has nothing to do with Leonard or anything. I'm not taking anything away from him, but more hits on the quarterback, more times on the ground. They're trying to make it an even line of scrimmage, where if you got Thibodeau on one side, you want somebody coming off the other side. With Dexter in the middle, whoever you put in the middle beside Dexter now, they become a better player, because all of a sudden you can't double anybody. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get guys away from double teams and get more guys free one-on-one against and being able to beat somebody one-on-one.
Because you look at Carolina's defensive front, what Burns opened up for everybody else was noticeable.
Absolutely.
On a weekly basis. And that's exactly what the Giants are anticipating, that he'll help Thibodeau. Thibodeau will help him. If Ojulari could stay healthy, now all of a sudden you have a third guy in the mix, and we didn't even mention Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, I think Ojulari stays healthier now, because he doesn't have to have as many reps. So
they don't have to give him X amount of snaps, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he could become that third down specialist, perhaps, Howard, right? I mean, you don't have to worry about wearing him down on the first 2 downs. You could pick and choose where you want to utilize
third
him.
and long could be his spot now.
Yeah, and that could maximize his value, and to your point, aid in his durability. Because remember, the thing that jumps out about Ojulari, Howard, and you know this well, it's the bang for the buck, meaning every play he's in, the level of production he gives was through the roof entering this season.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a matter of you have to play Ojulari every snap. It's you've got to get him on the field.
You got to figure out when you can get him on the field. Like I said, the pitch count thing is real. Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's head back to the phone lines.
He did have one more question. It was just how the strategy changes in the second round now that these moves have been made.
I thought Howard had touched on that in terms of at least the pass rusher.
Yeah, what I was saying was that the pass rusher itself, is more value than the second round pick that they gave up for him. That they're not going to find a guy in the draft I don't think you're going to get a guy in the draft that's that productive, that quick, that's already seasoned, but he's also young. So he's almost as young as the guys that are being drafted.
Well, my philosophy, to take it a step further, if you had the choice between turning the unknown, which are draft picks, right?
Yep.
To a known commodity, which is Brian Burns, why would you even hesitate?
You don't.
Right, because
they got him.
The point is, Howard, if you had that second round pick still, okay, can you guarantee that the player you're going to take is going to give you immediate production to the same degree that Brian Burns can? I think that's what you have to ask yourself.
You're not going to be able to.
And that's my same response to that question.
Absolutely
as well.
not.
So I would look at every trade that a team makes, not just the Giants.
Well, you're trading for known commodities, you
always want to do that.
But I always tell guys the difference is with Burns that he's still young enough. He's still on the uptick. So that's what the good thing is about him. I think that's probably more than anything else when you're that young. He's got 3 or 4 more years of like really super being productive before anything starts to happen with his game, and he's very durable. So that's going to be very exciting for him to be here.
Well, and that last point is key because keep in mind the Giants also have to give him a new contract in addition to trading for him. But you feel a lot better investing in somebody coming off his rookie deal than if he was maybe 4 years more into his career, like a Chris Jones of Kansas City. A little bit different.
I don't know.
No, Jones is still a great player. I'm talking about age. I was not talking. Chris Jones
I'm like, wait a minute.
No, well, Chris Jones is much older.
That's a bad reference there.
Well, it was just an age reference.
Okay.
Hey, remember, Kansas City, which just gave him a lucrative deal, notice they didn't give him 5 years of guaranteed money. They gave him more in the 2-year category of guaranteed money because they're aware he's going to the opposite end of 30
For the
now.
next 2 years, it's going to be really ugly for teams that's playing against that dude.
No doubt about it.
He's a dude.
Something tells me Steve Spagnuolo's not complaining
No.
that Chris Jones didn't hit free agency. Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Jesse on Long Island. What's happening, Jesse?
Hey, Lance. Howard, how are you guys doing today?
Very good. Very good.
Howard, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I know we haven't gotten a chance to speak yet, and obviously you're a Giants legend.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't alive for when you were playing, but not to make you sound old,
we
but,
like to date him on this show, so that's a great line by you,
that
Jesse.
Was really bad.
We like to make him feel as old as possible. Yes.
Any ammunition Lance can use, man.
I just want to touch on a couple of things. I'm not going to keep your time too much, but I will say yesterday I was at work. I was very busy at work yesterday, but when the news on Saquon broke, I was in the break room. I went into the break room. I was cursing out all my friends. I was screaming. I was really upset. And it's not the fact that they let him go. I honestly, and this is going to sound terrible. I don't mean it in a negative way because I think Saquon's a great guy. I don't think Saquon was the correct pick in 2018.
Okay.
As much as I respect his talent, what he is, I really don't think he was the correct pick. I think honestly, they really should have tried to trade back or should have taken somebody defensively. I think taking a running back at that spot, especially with all the needs that they had, was not the correct pick. But that's hindsight. It is what it is. But I'm not angry that he left. He deserves to get the money, and that's at the end of the day, that's what matters in this day and age. Get your money, get established, and that is what it is. But honestly, it sucks that he went to the team I hate the most in the entire NFL simply because I can't stand the Eagles, and now it's like to see them clowning all the Giants fans that they took Saquon from us and they have that potent offense already. It's just very frustrating. McKinney, I think I was actually more upset, and like after calming down and kind of thinking it over, I'm actually not as upset as I really thought I was. It kind of is what it is. At the end of the day, it's a business decision. So
sure.
I was more upset that McKinney left only because I feel like he is even though you don't pay safeties, and especially at that contract, there was no way I would have been happy with them paying him that kind of money. $17 million, that's like top 5 safety money. I don't think he is a top 5 safety in the sense that I just question him. There was a lot of questioning, especially after that whole accident thing. He didn't really play too well early on at the beginning of the season last year. He kind of turned it on at the end, but I had my own questions, and I'm glad they didn't pay him that money. I liked what they did, though. That Burns pick, that Burns trade was honestly a masterclass. I honestly thought when the reports were coming out, they were trading for Burns. I was like, oh, no, they're going to be giving up a first-round pick or next year or something like they're going to be, selling the farm for him. To only have to give up our first second-rounder and a 5 next year, honestly, I'm impressed that, Joe Schoen was able to maneuver that. I like the Singletary pickup. I think he definitely played well last year. I'm really hoping that they can find a way to fix this offensive line. They brought Runyon in, and I think he should be I think he's going to play left guard because I based on what I was reading his stats, he was better at left guard than he was at right guard last year. I think they brought him in. I know he can play both, but I think
he's also been a little bit more at left guard than right guard too. Yeah. So I think that's a sensible move.
They brought in Luminor, who can play both right guard and left guard. Right guard and right tackle. And I know he's got the history with Brasillo, so I'm hoping that they can finally shore up the offensive line, and they can start getting a competent offense out there. I don't know. I know Evan Neal's kind of a wild card right now. I don't know what going to happen with him. I'm hoping he at least comes in healthy to start the year, because I think that's his biggest issue the last 2 years. He just hasn't been able to get on the field. So I'm not going to call him a bust just yet, but if he can't stay healthy this year, or he just he's not playing well at right tackle, then I don't know I don't know if he's going to have to get bumped in, or I don't know what's going to happen with that. But I think now I'm just going to switch to the draft really quick.
Real quick,
Now that we know what's happened with free agency, I really don't want to trade up for a quarterback. I'm with Paul on that one. I know he's been saying it for the last couple of weeks. I don't want to trade up for a quarterback. If somebody falls to 6, then maybe, but I want an X receiver. The Giants haven't had an X receiver since Beckham Jr. and Hakeem Nicks before that. I think the Giants really need to get an X receiver, somebody that can really get open easy, and give Daniel Jones the best possible
another weapon essentially is what it would provide.
They need a weapon. I like Hyatt. I like Darius Slayton, Wandell. They're all competent receivers, and I think they all play well. But they're not X receivers. They're not like and obviously I'm not going to compare them, but they're not an A.J. Brown.
You're talking about game changer. I mean, Jesse, and listen, we'll let you go on that note. Appreciate the phone call. And Neighbors and Odunze certainly fit that bill. So there's room to add a player like that, Howard, because the Giants averaged 15 points a game last season, and you can't do that again for the second straight year.
Well, first things first, you got to shore up the line. They've done that a little bit. We're hoping that these pickups will be very I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's kind of hard to be worse than they were last year. That's what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to be as delicate as possible, because love these guys stuff, and I know how hard it is to play. And when everybody's injured and you're fitting people in left and right, it gets crazy. But they gotta figure out a way to get guys solid up front. If they can go through the season when they got 5 guys up front where they can play together for most of the year, I think they'll be better, and I think that'll help everything out. It'll help the quarterback out. It'll help the run game out. It'll help the receivers out. But you got to get those 5 guys up front. They have to have them in place and healthy for the year.
And as far as the last caller's point about Evan Neal, at this point, once again, as we mentioned earlier, you bring in competition. He knows that. The team knows that they can't bank on him, and it's got nothing to do necessarily with just performance. It has to do with health. Howard?
I talked to him about it last year. You got to get stuff fixed. You got to get yourself, as healthy as possible. It's not the same as it was in college, where you can you're bigger and stronger than everybody. Everybody's big and strong, so you need to have everything as healthy as possible and as tight as possible when you get ready to play, because, hey, look, man, these guys are out here trying to make money too, so you got to be as ready as possible when you get out there with them.
So with Jermaine Illuminor, now you have somebody that started the last 2 years in a system that your offensive line coach is now going to implement. And if Neal can't stay healthy or he beats him out, then at least you have somebody, and then Neal becomes your depth, potentially.
Neal becomes your depth, and Neal will be, I hope that whatever the competition is they're doing and however they're working, it gets done as early as possible so that they'll know what they have. You know what I mean? I think that they'll, Luminor could play right. You said he could play right guard. Okay, I don't want him trying both positions. Basically, I want him to be able to play.
Stay at one spot.
Let's get him in a spot. Let's get these guys set so we can get get the continuity together, so they can be able to pick up the blitz, be able to pick up the twist and stuff, the things that they've been hurt on for the last couple of years. That's what I'm pulling for. I'm pulling for them to get those 5 guys set. That's what I'm looking for.
I mean, you want to cross-train some of these guys, but to your point, you can only do so much experimentation leading up to the season.
5 guys set. Yeah, that cross-training is great. I enjoy it, but no, we want 5 guys.
It's no different than you can only imagine what John Michael Schmitz went through last season. Think about how many guards he played next to.
Right? Like some guys can help you and get you, no, that's not the call. The mic's over there. Move. Okay, to change it up, help you out. And some guys may be seeing it the way you're seeing it, and you might be seeing it wrong sometimes. So, yeah, they need as much help as possible. They need to be, straightforward continuity so they can all get it done.
Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Jeff in New Hampshire joining us. What's happening, Jeff?
Not much, guys. How are you?
Doing all right. Good. What's on your mind?
A couple of things. Howard, I never had the chance to talk with you on the phone, and the last caller just made me chuckle when he said he wasn't alive when you were playing. I thought to myself, you scored a lot of touchdowns for me in Tecmo Super Bowl back in the day. So I had kind of the opposite feeling there.
There is another.
Was that on Atari? What system did you have?
Sega, man. Sega.
Okay, Sega. Okay.
Whenever.
Well, that's at least a little bit more recent. I thought you were going to go Atari, old school on us.
That is just stop, Lance.
1993 season. It was great. About the
You
last
guys are
video
making.
game I ever played.
You're making Lance so happy right now.
This is tremendous. Keep calling in, especially all of you 90s babies who are not alive. Yes. Especially anyone born in 1998 or later, we recommend. Yes.
Okay.
You'd love it, Lance. I got the retro Sega. I still play it.
Absolutely.
Lance doesn't even know what that is.
Oh, no. Listen, I had Atari and then I transitioned to Sega Genesis. I'm well aware of what the caller is discussing. Yes.
All right, so just on Saquon real quick. Obviously, everybody's going to have different kinds of feelings about it. And like you said, if fans are allowed to feel the way they're going to feel. But I just can't help but laugh when it comes to this. I'm going to burn his jersey, all this kind of stuff. It's like, come on. You think of some of the most famous players in football. I mean, Joe Montana, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning might be the three best quarterbacks that ever lived, and they played with multiple teams.
That's true.
It's unfortunate, but it's the way it goes. It's just football. I mean, Howard, you just said yourself, if you had it to do over again, you probably would have switched teams at some point in your career.
Yeah, man, but if there was free agency like it is today, I definitely would have.
Correct.
And instead, the only thing that he could switch is on the roster in Sega Genesis on your game. I mean, think about that, Jeff. Think about how unfulfilling his life is as a result. Yes. But, Jeff, in all seriousness, the other example that I think you could throw out, go to baseball. How many guys have we seen suit up for the Red Sox and the Yankees? Johnny Damon, for example, right? I mean, look at what Johnny did for Boston, that big grand slam in 2004, and then he joins the Yankees.
And then here's the other thing. You know there's a market out there that you could resell jerseys. I would not be burning cash.
Or what? Can you take the name off the back of the jersey?
No, you can sell it. Some people buy them. They buy them
players that are no longer in those
absolutely.
uniforms. Okay, so there you go.
It's one of those things where sure, because he went to our rival, and I get that too because they're good now.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark Bavaro played for the Eagles for a couple of years. Giants fans don't really hold that against him now. Carl Banks played with Washington for 2 years. Do we hold that against Carl Banks now?
Yeah.
I mean, it stings now because Philadelphia's a really good team, and he's going to make them better. There's no two ways about it. At the same time, we had the player. We had a great running back with a bad offensive line. It's not Saquon's fault, but we didn't win a lot of games in the last 6 years. So to invest more money into a player who's only getting older at a position that doesn't age well, money can be better spent somewhere else. We should just, in my opinion, at least remember that he was a great player. He put the team first. He came to training camp last year when he didn't have to. That was great of him. We love him for that. Wish him luck, except when he plays against the Giants.
Well, technically, he had to come to camp because they retweaked the deal. So once they tweaked the deal, he had to show up.
He didn't have to retweak. He didn't have to retweak that deal, though.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Sure.
So he came back for the team. The team had high expectations. He didn't want to miss training camp. He could have sat out.
Yeah, that's true.
People were talking about Emmitt Smith in '93. Emmitt Smith sat out. The Cowboys went 0-2. They signed him, and the rest is history. Yep. Maybe it was '95. I forget which. But
no, you were right. It was '93.
You get the point. Yeah. He could have done that. He didn't.
Absolutely.
And the fact it makes guys like the Phil Simms, the Lawrence Taylor, the Eli Manning, the Michael Strahan, it makes it that much more special what they do because it doesn't happen that often. And I understand being a little upset. And then just real quick on Xavier and McKinney, same kind of thing. McKinney's a great player. I know, Roll Tide, right?
Roll Tide.
He was a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a good player. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. But we're not losing Ed Reed in his prime. We're not losing Ronnie Lott here. We took the money that we could have put in a less important position and put it in the offensive line and the pass rusher. You can say, now we have a hole at safety, right? Well, guess what? This roster is going to have holes. We're not ready to win a Super Bowl. Would you rather have a hole at a really important position like edge rusher or offensive line or at safety? We simply allocated the resources to more important positions. The player we're losing, good player. He's not a Hall of Fame player. He's not a first-team Pro Bowl player. We're going to be okay.
All right, Jeff. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. And I mean, he's basically hammering on the point that we were talking about, the shift towards the trenches as opposed to other positions. And while Barkley's a weapon, okay, he's not a conventional running back. That's important to note. But think about it. Aside from Christian McCaffrey, very few running backs / weapons have been invested in. If you look at the current market right now.
I get it. And I understand what everybody's saying. But let's be realistic. Christian McCaffrey played at Carolina. He kind of had the same kind of career at Carolina as Saquon was having here at the Giants.
Injuries that he had to deal with.
Got to deal with the injuries.
Yep.
Everything was getting on him and everything. But when he gets out, he goes to San Francisco where there are weapons around him. He has a better career. They're hoping the same thing in Philadelphia is going to happen with Saquon. I would say, yes, that could happen. And I could also say, I don't know, because the last 6 games, you guys fell apart and no one knows why. So, but for 10 games, you like the best team in the league. The last 6, you kind of look like, no one knows what happened. So whatever they have to figure out down there, they got to figure out. Saquon will help them, but he's not going to solve all their problems because he doesn't play defense, and they couldn't stop anybody late in the year. So,
they had major problems on that side of the ball.
That's all good. As for Saquon himself, I wish him nothing but health, wealth, and just go get him, man. He's a good kid. I like Saquon. He did a heck of a job here. He was a great person on and off the field. Always had a big smile on his face. I'm happy for him. That's just the business of the game. I'm happy for him. I hope we kick his butt every time we see him, but I'm very happy for him.
Well, and from the Giants' perspective, if you're saying, okay, well, you lose Saquon and his versatility, I think the philosophy now is with 3 running backs, can you equate to what you got out of Saquon? Meaning one guy can help in receiving.
And you don't know what you're going to get in the draft either.
Without a doubt. So you could add another person, and you could use a wide receiver to help offset what you lose in Saquon as a receiver.
In the second round late, you could pick that kid up if he's still there from Louisville that ran that 4.39. Like that. Those kind of guys are sitting out there. And as far as safety goes for McKinney, I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler for the rest of his career. I just think he has that kind of potential. No, he's not Ed Reed. No one's Ed Reed. No one's Ronnie Lott because it's illegal to do what Ronnie did back then. You just can't hit people like that anymore. But he's going to be a good player. He's not a thumper by any stretch of the imagination. But as long as he can, keep that range from sideline to sideline, he'll be pretty good back there.
Remember, also, when you have a new defensive coordinator, Shane Bowen's going to weigh in. Not to say that he couldn't utilize McKinney, but they had conversations before free agency even started.
Anybody could use McKinney. McKinney's a good player.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is about allocating resources.
Yeah.
If they went to Shane Bowen and they said, listen, if we could take X amount of dollars, get you Brian Burns, but we have to sacrifice McKinney, what does that mean for your defense? I mean, that would be a scenario I'd laid out to my defensive coordinator.
I think that when they were trying to hire him, they were saying, like, this is what we're looking to do.
Yep.
And what do you think? And he's probably like, oh, yeah, if you did that, that'd be a lot helpful. That'd be more helpful for us. So I can appreciate where he was in the situation. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, this is a guy that's coming over from a Tennessee team where he had Jeffrey Simmons, like Dexter Lawrence, and then he had a guy by the name of Harold Landry off the edge, okay?
Yeah,
so something tells me he's got Dex now, he's got Brian Burns, he's got Kayvon Thibodeau, that he's saying to himself, okay, what I was running in Tennessee,
and he's got Bobby O'Kerrick to play from sideline
and linebacker. Yeah, he's got playmakers up front.
He got a great corner on one side. It's going to be phenomenal, and just getting started is going to be in the second year. So yeah, he's got a lot. He's got the basis of a great defense.
And the goal is, if you can do a lot of the heavy lifting up front, it eases what you're putting on the safety position.
Always.
Right?
Yes, always. Absolutely.
So that may allow you to say, okay, hey, Dane Belton can take on a larger role and thrive. And Jason Pinnock can continue.
The greatest example of that is the Eagles from 2 years ago when they had all those sacks. When they were getting all those sacks, no one talked about the secondary. When they stopped
they were in the 70s.
Yeah, once they stopped getting all those sacks, all of a sudden, like, guys can't cover. Like, wait a minute, them the same dudes that was there last year.
Yep.
Like, oh.
They didn't forget how to play football.
No,
overnight.
they didn't. They were just exposed because, oh, wait a minute, you can actually throw the ball. So it became a big difference, yes.
Yeah. And to use the Giants as a means of comparison, the Giants had 34 sacks last season.
Yeah.
So now you bring on Burns, who's a threat for double-digit sacks. Thibodeau already had double digits. We know Dexter could do damage. You're adding another piece. Can you get into the 40s? And how much does that change the secondary?
And Dexter will be healthier. Late in the year, he had the hamstring, so he was struggling at the end of the year. And he was on a pitch count. So, yeah, get everybody in healthy and going. It's going to be very interesting to see.
I want to go back to what we were talking about, allocating resources and making up for the loss of Saquon, because a guy that I'm looking at, Howard, who I think could take on a more prominent role, being removed another year from the torn ACL, they can utilize Wan'Dale Robinson like they did Saquon as a receiver I'm talking about. Remember, he also has background as a running back. If you're going to try to make up for the elusiveness of Saquon, to me, I'm pointing at Wan'Dale Robinson.
Okay, so I get all that, and I get Saquon. Saquon is a dynamic, incredible player, and he like I said, deserves everything he's going to get. If they get this offensive line fixed, and they, not even drastically improve it, but really improve it, it's going to change the way that a lot of these plays have been played, and a lot of these players are going to look a lot differently because there are going to be time for them to throw the ball. They'll have space out there because if you can't get to the quarterback and hit him in the second step of his drop, like he was getting hit a lot the last couple of years, then all of a sudden, things look different. They got enough players. You got a guy out there that can flat out fly on the edge, right, at Hyatt. So imagine having time to launch the ball up to him when he gets, putting people on skates back there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch. Again, I'm just hoping the offensive line, I've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 years, you got to fix the offensive line. If they fix it, everything else is going to come.
Yeah, because, nobody's saying that it's going to be clean 100% of the time, but if you look at how many times those 3 quarterbacks were sacked last season, okay, 85 times.
Yeah. Daniel,
between the 3.
Daniel would have been sacked 85 times if he was in there by himself. So that's
well, he was sacked 30 times in only 6 games.
Yeah, that was, God bless him.
Yeah. So even if you take 85 and you get it to, heck, if you take 20 sacks away, Howard, think about what that does in terms of additional at-bats for your offense.
That's going to be that's huge. If you can take 25 sacks off 85, that would be huge. And that's still a lot, having 60 sacks.
It's still, but in terms of what happened last season, it's night and day.
Absolutely.
Think about how many drives could potentially continue because you have one less huge negative play.
Yeah,
smack in the middle.
And
of
if you take 25 away, you might as well be taking away 35 because that means you're going to keep, like you just said, drives are going to continue. You're going to score more. You're not going to be dropping back as much because your offense is being more consistent. Your defense will be playing a little bit better. They'll be rested because they're not as many 3 and outs. So yeah, that could help. That could help tremendously.
And the point, I guess, that I was making with Saquon, and your point is well taken, the offensive line improvement could help everything. I guess I was looking at how you utilize Saquon. Putting the offensive line performance away to the side, could Wan'Dale be utilized in the same manner, is my point, as Saquon was with respect to the 41 receptions that they got him?
I got it, but you have to understand who Saquon is. And I think people are kind of missing it. When Saquon played with the Giants, when he touched the ball, the teams the Giants played against, their number one goal was to stop 26. That's all every defense. You can see when they faked in the ball, and he would go you see everybody's face would turn to watch him. Like, that's gone. So now teams are going to have to okay, how are we going to do this? Who are we focusing on? They got to have a better plan than to stop 26. And that's what the whole thing, and the offense was kind of built around 26 as well. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. He was the best player offensively. He was explosive, and if he ever got loose, it could be a problem. Problem was, if 11 dudes are looking at you, it's hard to get loose.
Sure.
So that's going to be the biggest difference, for him here. And, also him going to the Eagles. There are not going to be 11 guys staring at him because there's a guy on the outside that's a 1,000-yard receiver.
A.J. Brown.
There's another 1,000-yard receiver
Devontae
over
Smith.
Here. So, yeah, there are going to be more people.
How about Dallas Goedert, the tight end?
The tight end.
It's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot for them to be looking at.
And I'm sure that was part of his thinking process, too.
Yeah, so when you think about that, then when you start to, quote-unquote, design a Giants offense now, it's not so much – okay, we got to use Saquon as a decoy. We got to use Saquon for this. We got to see Saquon for that. And now it's more of, hey, let's design plays and see who does what well, so we can start to get into the flow of the game and change the outlook, so to speak. And that's what the running back by committee and all these different things that they did when they were in New England. The person you had to focus on not New England, Buffalo. The person you had to focus on up there is big giant quarterback.
Yep.
But they also had a receiver out there, Diggs, that could really cause you problems when he got started. So that's what they're trying to work their way up to have more receivers out there for the quarterback to throw it to have an offensive line that keeps the quarterback clean for most of the game, so they can actually run the ball because the tight ends catching balls, the receivers are deep threats. All of a sudden you hand the ball off, it's just part of the game. It's not like, okay, we got to do this to set something up. You don't have to set anything up because it's just part of your offense. And I don't think that, not to Saquon isn't the greatest, great talent and everything, but I don't think the utilization of any player on the team will be the same unless you get like Christian McCaffrey in here or a Derrick Henry if he would have come here.
Sure.
Where like you gotta like stop that dude, and that's not what they're going to be dealing with.
Well, that's why right before we wrap up here, it's going to be interesting, and clearly they're going to add more talent because they could very well add a playmaker in the draft with the 6th overall pick. But as it stands right now, if you're an opponent, just to go through an experiment, assuming Darren Waller is healthy, I mean, that would be the guy, at least on paper, Howard, no? That I would say, I don't want to damage the game.
If the offensive line is really kind of up and running, if you just use the players that were here today, you'd be looking at Wendell to try to slow him down to figure out, because he comes out of different angles running across the field.
Well, and that's why I brought his name up.
You'd be trying to make sure that Slayton doesn't get started, because once he gets started, he's a headache. If he's still with the team and everything, you'd be worried about Hyatt because Hyatt's on the outside. This is if everybody's healthy and everybody's kind of playing along in the system, and the quarterback has time. If the quarterback has time, all of a sudden all these guys are a problem. Now you're trying to add a guy that's an X receiver. If you add that X receiver, another guy that's like, oh no, he can go get it and make his own. You're just going to have that. That's just more problems. So yeah, like I said, there is no one player that replaces Saquon because Saquon had all eyes on him. So now they got to be responsible for all these other guys. And the only way you can make them responsible for all these other guys is you got to block up front.
So that they could get out in open space and do their thing. If they can't get blocked, then it's going to be back to square one.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that it doesn't help to have all these tools, but the tools can only be utilized and taken advantage so much because you're not winning the battles up front, which is why they now are steering the money in that direction to then have everybody else feed off of that element.
Exactly.
All right. That is going to wrap up Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. It's part of the Giants platforms everywhere, and Giants.com specifically /podcast. For Howard Cross, I'm Lance Medow. Free agency just getting going. Remember, nothing official until 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. We'll be back up and running again on Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Stay locked to Giants.com for all the latest, and have a good one here on BBKL.
Hello, Saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.